Today I'm going to talk about spacers in particular, and for particularly in this transit. The reason you want to have spacers on your transit, or this is actually not regular spacers, it's adapter spacers, if that makes sense. This is the first version. I decided this is not anything I'm going to use, it's a prototype. I put it on the car to see everything lines up. But the second prototype looked like this, and its purpose is not to allow thicker wheels, it's to allow a different wheel. That's an adapter spacer. And this one actually takes it from the transit wheel, which is 5 by 160 to 5.5 inches, which is the same as Dodge. The reason I choose Dodge is unfortunately actually a really good reason, because I wanted to go to Dodge. The Dodge axle is fitting up to the transit. The spring hangers and those things, they just bolt straight up. It's the right position. The shock absorber is not right, but it's not that critical to weld them up again. But you don't have to modify anything of the axle, you just bolt straight up into the car. So that's a good thing, and that's the reason I wanted to make it to the Dodge pattern here. And also because I got the wheels for it. But the problem with making a spacer for the transit, the later disc brake versions, is the disc brakes is bolts up with 5 lugs. They are the same on like all the transits from up to around the 2000, I think. So they basically protrude into the hub assembly, so you can't really fit the wheel as you want to. So therefore I designed those to have this space for it. But the biggest problem with those spacers, it's not a problem, but you can't really machine this in a normal way. I actually found some really good, this is a really good condition. This is real spacers. I mean real, this is just plastic prototypes, but those are something that someone has made, possibly a machine shop or someone's garage somewhere in the 80s, 90s in Sweden, to be able to fit wheels to your transit. But this problem, this is not the Dodge pattern, this is little GM, which is not really that big of a deal. I found another set of wheels that looks the same but a bit smaller, but I found wheels to fit this and fit the car, and it's on the car now. The problem is this doesn't fit the car. As we discussed before, the 5 lug on the brake disc, which is protrude on the hub, is going to contact here. So there will be 5 of those lugs that are going to contact straight here, and you can't get the spacer on. To solve that pattern, I countersunk them into the hub, so they're not a problem. But the problem is, when you look at those, they need really high torque. It's not that hard to find. I found some I can use for it, but there's still something to take into consideration. If you just countersunk them and you put in the wrong bolts, they might snap and you might lose your brake disc. So that's a concern. It has 6mm hex key in them. At 56 Newton meters, I started to feel that the hex bit started slipping. So I don't use any Loctite because I need to get the disc off at some point if I need to. I don't want to just make something that I can't take apart, which it's almost at the point I can't take it apart. So that's basically how you make one of those fits. And if I were to tell you how well those particular units is made, I'm not sure if all of them, it might be one person making all of them, so maybe if you find yourself, those are really particular to Sweden, also Swedish custom. British people seems to like their specific Wolf racing wheels, which was made for a transit. They also make wheels today for a transit. But if you want to have some time correct thing, you really can't go back with a time machine and get the right wheels. So yeah, that's the option you got to find some really old school homemade spacers. I will always call them homemade, because they are slightly out of alignment, if that makes any sense. Those holes feels like they are a fraction of a millimeter off, because when I put it on, it doesn't go on all the way. It kind of struggles to go onto the center pins. So I think this is off with a tenth of a millimeter off. Another thing I can tell you is, if you look at the lugs, they look like they're pointing outwards a little bit. So I think that this particular unit is machined with like a fraction of a millimeter off on the settings. So it might be wrong with, everyone might be like that, or maybe this is my unit. But they are really rare. But it's still common on the custom cars. I mean, common to see on pictures of cars from the past, which is no longer with us, but I can at least tell you 10 cars that had those spacers. So it's not like a small factory. Might be. But yeah, so this is a really time correct custom part. And the best part, compared to making your own, this costs you money. I mean, this is expensive to make someone make that for you. Even if you can get really good precision, it might be off by some millimeters. Like, you can ask them to get like 0.05 millimeters precision on some sites I've seen, but it's still going to cost you a lot of money. While this is made of steel, it's a lot stronger than aluminium. It weighs a little bit more, but compared to the brake drum and that weight of the brake drum and brake calipers, I don't think you will notice this much more weight. And the best of all, you can fit the wheels you want to have on your car and not the wheels you have to have. Because you need to trust me that wheels, getting some real 70s slot mags on your Transit is really gonna make it look a lot more like a custom car. Make it a lot more professional looking, if that makes sense. It's an option of taste. If you like custom wheels, you like custom wheels. If you like factory wheels, I mean, you probably put factory wheels on a factory car. This is not a factory car. If a custom car needs a custom wheels, that looks good on the car. It takes the car from 8.5 to a 9.5. It's not 10 yet, but it's almost 10, which is great. Here you can see me reinstalling the hub assembly. I have countersunk the screws for the brake disc. And now I'm just re-greasing it like you should do. Not the perfect, but it works. Yeah, it's a bit hard to get it into the bearing area, but that will do. It will be fine. And now I put the nut back so it doesn't wander off. I'm only putting it back so I can torque down the screws for the brake disc. And I have to put the wheel back to set the bearings and torque it down. And we just put it back temporarily so we can get it down to the ground. And now we give it some good beating to set in the bearing. Now we set the preload or whatever on the bearing so it doesn't... yeah. And now we're reinstalling the cotter pin and the cap so it doesn't untighten itself. That will be bad. And then we just hammer the grease. Then we just hammer the grease cap into place. And now it's time to set the torque on the brake disc screws. And I almost stripped out the hex things, and I torque it down to 56 Newton meter, which is a bit too much. 50 will be enough, I think. And now we just have to take off the wheel again. I forgot to mention that you have to cut the wheel studs. The problem is you can maybe find the right studs to install the shorter ones, but because they're going so tight against the brake caliper, I just didn't feel comfortable replacing them and had to grind them down. At that point I just cut them I have on the car. They was perfectly fine, in excellent condition. And then I used the torque wrench to install the spacer, so I got it really well aligned. And the same thing with the wheel. And the best thing with tightening down everything with a torque wrench, I can go back after the test drive and make sure everything has the same torque. In that case, I know it won't go anywhere. And I tightened down the spacer and the wheel to 100 Newton meter. And here you can see the car. The rear wheel is a bit too big, so I have to make it smaller. I have to go with a smaller profile on the back because it's a bit too big. And here you can see the widened steel wheels of the past.